The RS56 EQ comes in both mono and stereo versions. The main controls are the same in both. It's a 3-band EQ. Each band has a choice of 4 center frequencies, 6 curves, and continuous boost and cut of plus or minus 20 dB. This last, as I mentioned, is a practical deviation from the original design, which had only 10 dB boost and cut in 2 dB increments. Waves decided that, for modern applications, the greater flexibility would be more important than slavish adherence to the hardware, and I think that was a smart choice. The 3 bands are labeled top, treble, and bass, and each offers 4 selectable frequencies. Bass covers the low frequency range, as you'd expect, with options of 32, 64, 128, and 256 Hz. You might notice that these are all doubled, an octave apart. Above the bass range is the so-called treble band, but this actually covers a frequency range that nowadays we describe as mid-range. The frequency choices start an octave above the bass and fall at 512, 1024, 2048, and 4096 Hz. The high-end band is labeled top. Here, the octave band pattern breaks. The frequency options are 5800, 8192, 11600, and 16400. That's 5.8K, 8.1K, 11.6K, and 16.4 kilohertz. This is more like every half octave or so. I guess the original designer felt that top-end adjustments were more critical. The top, treble, and bass labels function as on-off switches for each band. The bandwidth choices were particularly flexible for a time when basic filters and shelving EQs were the most common options. While I wouldn't describe this EQ as surgical, so to speak, it does let you boost or cut in narrow enough bandwidths to make distinctive tonal tweaks. The options for bandwidth, or Q as it's called technically, are labeled descriptively rather than numerically like you'd find in a modern parametric EQ. The Q in a modern EQ typically ranges from extremely narrow, higher values like 3 and above, to extremely wide, lower values below 1. The RS56 has 6 options. Low end and high end are shelving curves. Interestingly, even though the frequency ranges of the top and bass bands are limited to high and low frequencies respectively, the top band's low-end shelf still boosts or cuts everything below the chosen frequency, affecting almost the entire frequency range at the higher frequency settings. And the bass band's high-end shelf does the same. You want to watch out for this. It can result in a sudden large jump in overall level if you're flipping through the bandwidth options with a hefty boost dialed up. The remaining 4 bandwidth choices range from blunt, their term for a relatively wide bandwidth, to sharp, their term for a relatively narrow bandwidth. As you can see, blunt looks to be a bandwidth of about 4 octaves or so. Medium blunt, about half as wide, more or less. Medium sharp, maybe half as wide again. And sharp, less than an octave wide. Like I said, even at the sharp setting, this is not the kind of surgical adjustment that a modern EQ can do, honing in on a very specific problem frequency. But to throw in an overused descriptive term, it's a musical EQ. Even tweaks that add a very noticeable coloration to the sound have a slightly softer, more subtle character, with a little less of that peaky edge than many modern EQs, even very good ones, can sometimes have. I'll finish up this description in the next chapter.